Vice Mayor Fennell,
Here.
Councilman Alexander, Councilman Fan, Councilwoman George,
Here.
Councilman Hayes,
Here.
Oh, present? I'm sorry.
Councilwoman Love is absent, and Councilman Overton.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Approval of minutes for August 10th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Have a first by Councilman Alexander and a second by Councilman George. This is time for public recognition.
All in favor?
Pardon?
All in
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? It passes. Now it's public recognition. Anyone would like to speak, come forward, please.
Good evening, Councilman Fan. Can you hear me all right?
I don't know if your mic's working or not. Is it? Sorry.
Okay. Michelle Juvance, 1335 Long Hollow Pike. I wanted to talk about the redrawing the district lines that you have on your agenda for tonight. This is something that happens once in a decade, and I have some questions for y'all. I live in District 4. My district has grown the most. It's grown from about 6,000 in the last census. The last redrawing was about 6,000, and now District 4 has 14,779 people. So that is almost a 250,000, 250% increase. So I was just talking to my councilman for a few minutes right here before the meeting, and talking about how he's been through this process before, and actually 3 of you have been through this process before. So my question is, why, in my opinion, we need more districts because of how much the city has grown geographically. And my question is, why were you not proactive in adding more districts a few years ago? Mayor Brown mentioned last time that there's not enough time to add more districts right now because it would have to change the charter and go to the legislature. So you 3 of you have been through this process before. It's not something new to you, so you knew this was coming. So why didn't you proactively a few years ago make this change and add more districts? You all have approved enough annexations in the past 13 years to almost double the geographic area of the city. Since 2008, our geographic area has almost doubled with annexations, and 3 of you have been here through all of that. You voted to add all this land to the city. So why haven't you added more districts? 4 of you councilmen live within a mile of each other. Yet a third of the geographic area of the city does not have a single council person living in that area. I live in the area that I'm talking about. Within that 1/3 of the geographic area of the city, that area of the city is has the most change happening. It's where the most growth has happened and where it's continuing to happen. So, in my opinion, if the 4 of you councilmen want to live in the same area as each other, that's fine, but why don't you add more districts so that some of us who don't live in that area can have someone who does live in our area that represents us? Districts should be compact and contiguous and have the same amount of people. Compactness is understood in terms of a district shape. Irregular shaped districts are a sign of violating this principle. currently, there is a neighborhood that's cut in half between two districts. So that really is also a problem, in my opinion. So I'm curious to see how you're gonna do this. I'm gonna really watch all the maps that are presented to you tonight, because the way the population has grown, I think this is gonna be difficult to do unless you start from a clean slate and disregard the existing districts, or unless you add more districts. Thank you so much.
Anyone else like to speak?
What she said. What I was going to say is what she said, but she said it much more elaborately. I do think we need to.
Ma'am, you need to state your
Oh, I'm
name and
sorry.
address, please.
My name is Sandra Kelly. I live at 103 Jones Street. I forgot that.
That's okay.
I think maybe if we're still open to adding people to the committee to redistrict, we need some citizens, just citizens at large to maybe have some input. Maybe hire an independent expert to help with the redistricting, and also add more districts. And I don't know all the details that Michelle does, but I heard what she's had to say, and I pretty much agree with it. So thank you.
My name is Joe DeBoard, and I live at 1007 Hart Street. And I'm rising tonight in support of number 2 on your agenda. Has to do with getting a roll-off truck for recycling. But I'm going to have to add a little bit extra to that. It should be amended. The amendment should be that this vehicle should be a single axle truck with a drop axle. We call it a drop axle, tag axle, whatever you want to call it, in front of the drive axle. So when we take this stuff down to Nashville and then dump it down there and it becomes lighter, then we can raise the other axle up and go up the road with not having all that extra weight and saving us some time and fuel. That's the first issue of this deal. Number 2 is, when we purchase this vehicle, we ought to be able to get training for our technicians to be able to work on it. I understand we've had a little problem with our other roll-off because we did not have the available technicians' ability to work on vehicles because of no training, and that should be a part of the buy, period. In other words, if you buy a vehicle, you better be able to work on it. Now, the other catch on that is this. The manufacturers have to give us the information with regard to that, and as a municipality, we should be able to do any work as far as warranty, provided we have people that are trained in utilizing this. We do not need to go anybody else's shop. We got one sitting right over there. It's a beautiful shop. And what we need to do right now, folks, and I keep hammering it, is get people trained to be able to work on our vehicles. Period. Exclamation point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe.
Good evening, Pascal Jovens, 1335 Longolo Park. Thank you, Vice Mayor, for offering us free food tonight. I always like to eat my taxpayer money, so that's great. And we're missing Miss Love. Hopefully she's doing okay, but I'll talk about redistricting. That's not going to be an easy task. I know we heard that that's going to be easy, but looking at the map, I don't know how you guys are going to do it, so I really don't know to follow the rules and what's supposed to be done, like Michel say, or the contiguous and forms, and I really don't know how that's going to happen. Went to the meeting at the county yesterday. They were talking about redistricting too, and I was really informating meeting. TCAS came there and to help them. So I was wondering if you guys going to use MTAS the same way the county used TCAS. That would be a good way to use people who actually are used to do that and who know all the rules, and to make sure there is no bad thing made and opening, any legal option for the city. A lot of you guys voted for term limit in 2018, and where, just talking to my councilman would tell me he's going to run again. Great, but you guys voted for term limit. Some are here from 1997. That must be probably a record. Some 2000, some 2006. Maybe you should think about, not think about that, but if you guys don't run, that will make the redistricting a lot easier. That's your call. And again, the 7th district, same thing that Michel said. I don't understand why we've been hearing from this council that the city is growing and growing, and nothing done proactively for that. 7th district will make a lot of things easier, but again, we know why it's not done, because, like Michel said, 4 of you guys live in 1 mile of together, and there was 7th district. I mean, 3 of you would not be sitting there, so that's probably why it's not happening. It's still a year away. I can read a little on it. It's not an easy process, but we still have time to do it. I need 2/3 of your votes, and have to go to legislative, and you can request to be put on the 30 days on legislative, so you probably have time to do it. It's just, wanted to do it more than time. So anyway, again, thanks for everything tonight. Thanks for including us on the previous meeting. It was great and informative, and that's a good step. And I appreciate your work.
Would anybody else like to speak? If not, we'll move on to mayor's comments. The mayor's not here tonight. Does any council member have any comment?
Sorry, Mr. Fan. First of all, I'd like to say that the mayor would like to be here tonight, but she had some prior obligations. Another thing, we just got through doing our planned Gallatin meeting. I hope most of the citizens out there, some people joined in to get an idea of what we're fixing to adopt into the city of Gallatin. And we've had a lot of participation from the citizens and planning commission and the city council. So I'm glad to see that coming to an end. Also, the Greater Gallatin is supposed to be bring forward a road closure request for September 2nd, and the 3rd Thursday was canceled last week. Jeff Henshaw should be bringing it back up. Another thing too, we will not be having a meeting the next Tuesday night because it is our 5th Tuesday. I want to say that. Another thing, you all are aware of what happened in the news, the flooding, the loss of life, the cities, the citizens that are having problems with this. And I know that our mayor's office, along with some department heads here, has been in contact with Humphreys and Dixon County to offer support. And we do stand ready to assist whatever we can do. Additionally, the city will be posting links to volunteer opportunities in the coming days. So guys, let's try to step up a little bit and help the people out, because I know that in the past, if we've had some tornadoes and some bad stuff happen to us, they have come around to help us. With that being said, I think I announced everything that Mayor wanted me to announce. So that's the end of the mayor's comments, and back to you, Mr. Fan.
Thank you. We'll move on to the agenda now. First on the agenda is ordinance number 0210951, and be Mr. Tuttle.
Councilman Fan. This ordinance is an ordinance to appropriate money that we received from the Panera Bread development when it came in. Back a few years ago, they gave us $1,800 to complete a portion of sidewalk that would go up to the intersection of Nashville Pike and Lock 4 Road. We didn't require them to complete it at that time because we did not have any pedestrian crosswalks across the intersection. We're developing that plan right now with grant funding. We've got an 80-20 grant that we're actually really close to going to construction on. And so Ms. Mudrack in the planning office has been asking me for a while now to go ahead and get that off the books and over to the Nashville Pike Sidewalk project. And so that's what we're doing with this.
Have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Alexander first, Mr. Overton second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is, number two is ordinance number 0210952. Mr. DePriest.
Thank you, Councilman Fan. This is ordinance appropriating $173,233 for purchase of a new 2022 roll-off recycling truck. Y'all are aware that our truck went down. It was down for 4 weeks. We got it back last Friday. Pretty significant.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion by Mr. Overton, a second by Mr. Alexander. All in favor?
Aye.
Wait a
All
minute.
opposed?
Mr. DePriest, are you ordering a single axle with a dump axle, a drop axle?
No, it's a tandem axle.
Okay,
Off recommendations from Mr. Jimmy Loper,
Mr.
Vehicle
Lowe.
Maintenance Supervisor. Yes, sir.
Okay, just checking.
Now we're ready to vote.
Thank y'all.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approves. Number three is ordinance 0210953. Ms. Nichols.
Before the meeting started this evening, I handed out an updated ordinance that included the entire list of projects that we would like to carry over from last fiscal year. These projects were originally budgeted last year, but due to timing, were not completed, and these are the balances that the departments have requested to be rolled over into the new budget year.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Then the next item is to appropriate funds that have been received from donation from Facebook. The agreement, I believe, is that engineering, codes, and planning will all divide the annual donation. Mr. Stewart and Codes would like to purchase some vehicles and some additional training for his staff. Mr. Tuttle would like to purchase a couple of vehicles and computers, and the remaining balance, we're not sure how they want to use yet, so we're just bringing this forward so we can start the POs for the vehicles since it's taking a while to get them.
Second.
Councilman Overton, first motion. Councilman Fennell, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. Item number 5, redistricting discussion. Ms. Smiley.
Hello, I put a packet on your desks right before the meeting that had the 4 proposals that we have come up with. I have to shout out to Jesse Martis and Preston Dallas, two GIS folks who have worked very, very hard on this. And I also want to talk about a little bit about the process and what kind of rules we have to follow and the parameters we have, how we came up with this. I have talked to Matthew Hill at the Comptroller's Office. They are working their way around the state to talk to folks about how to go about doing this, and offering up some tools which we developed ourselves. So we're kind of ahead of the game at this point, happy to say, and everything that we have done thus far, he has approved, and so we feel pretty confident about the 4 proposals we've drawn up for y'all. So the first thing is, just for the, I guess, public's edification, and just so they know where they can find this information, there is a guide that is put out by the Tennessee State Comptroller's Office, which is a guide to local government and redistricting. This guide contains a lot of information about the laws and federal laws, state laws that we have to follow, and that have to be taken into consideration when we go to do this redistricting. Also, there's some city code, right, Susan? Charter, that we have to follow, so all of this was taken into account. And I just want to go through this and explain it so everybody is on the same page and understands as they look through these proposals, kind of how we ended up where we did. I will say that we also used an auto redistricting tool that we found. We ran probably 75 to 100 iterations through that. We did not come up with one that would kind of fit our world, mainly because of the constraints that are put on us because of these rules. So the first thing is that the city charter, as well as page 19 of this guide, refers to the fact that each council person must live within the new council district. So as we redrew these, we took into account where the current residents are, of the 5 districts. The second thing, that we cannot split a census block. So when the new census came out, the U.S. Census Bureau redrew census blocks based on whether it was roads or natural waterways or railroad tracks, or however they decided. They came back with these census blocks. Some of these census blocks make absolutely no sense in the world. And they put some serious constraints on us as far as, if you took one block, you'll see in some of these maps, if you take a block, the block is in the shape of a semicircle with a tail or something. I don't know. It's just, they're crazy, but it is what it is, and we cannot split a census block. I will say too that when they came back with our census block, with our city borders drawn on it, there are some census blocks. There were 15 census blocks that were partial. So our city, why can't I think of the word? Our city borders cut through census blocks. So in that case, we went ahead and ended up zeroing out. The data only comes in the census block. So if they say there's 38 people in that census block, and our city district, or our city borders boundaries cut through that census block, there's no way for me to know that actually 12 of those live in the city. Not to mention all the race factors that go into it. So at the recommendation of the Comptroller's Office, we ended up zeroing those out, and we were able to match the 44,431 population that the Census Bureau has said is in our city. Redistricting also must adhere to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is the minority representation, and the subsequent amendment that happened in 1982. Page 9 of this guide goes into that pretty deeply. So we had to make sure that we were adhering to those acts. The council district should be reasonably compact and contiguous, and they shall not overlap. So, you know, again, if there is a reason, a justifiable reason to that, to not make them as compact because you're trying to meet the, for example, minority representation, then that is allowed. Council districts where possible should be bounded by major roads, railroads, or natural boundaries like rivers, streams, and they should not split neighborhoods. Pardon? I don't think that's new.
You mean I'm splitting that road right now?
Right, and some of it, again, all of this are guidelines, and again, where possible. I mean, there are just some places where you end up, because you have to follow a census block, you end up splitting a neighborhood in trying to get the population right, and even across the board. I mean, you do the best you can, and you know, I think, I'm trying to remember, I think in the proposals that we have come up with, I think there may only be one instance, maybe, that we split a neighborhood. So we were able to follow the rule to get that right. So the next one's a little, you know, geeky, but council districts must fall within a relative deviation of plus or minus 5% unless mathematically impossible. So what that means is you come up, you take your total population, we have 5 districts, you divide it by 5. So the ideal population we were searching for was 88,000 or 8,886 people in each district. Okay, that would make it pretty even. The plus or minus 5% was, I think, 444. So every council district had to fall between 8,442 people and 9,330 people. So we had to stay in that range. And the lower that deviation, the lower the percentage, the better job we did. So keep that in mind because that's going to be important. And consideration was given to areas of planned growth. So in some cases where the population of the district was a little bit lower, like on the closer to the 8442, we took into consideration all of the developments and the planned growth and things like that are already in the pipeline. So, and we are allowed to do that based on guidance on page 20. So the actual guideline is free at the State Comptroller's Office. You can download it yourself. It's part of this agenda packet, and I believe that Susan has also left a copy on your desks for referral. So,
Lori, can I go ahead and
Sure,
just speak?
absolutely.
Because I think once they start looking at the maps, they're not going to listen to anything that I have to say after that. So I'd like to go ahead and speak. Everyone wants to see maps. I just want to give a little bit of history. We do have 7 councilmen. The city of Gallatin has had 7 council people as far back as 1855, kind of as far back as we can see in the minutes back to 1855. Until 1990, all 7 of those were at large. And in 1990, the city voted and changed the charter to have 2 at-large and 5 districts. So we've, since 1990, had 2 at-large and 5 districts. That's just a little bit of a history. All of that is set out in the charter, and I think at a previous council meeting, there was a discussion, or at least a question, I believe Councilwoman George asked about potentially adding districts. And we are a private act charter. And so what that means is we pass something, and because we are private act charter, the legislature then has to approve what we do before our charter can be amended. Then they send it back and we have to approve it again. The legislature doesn't go into session until January, and then they meet in committees. Typically, they don't get out of those committees, from what I can remember, and start really passing legislation until March. And the Election Commission has asked us to make this a priority to go ahead and get our districts done, because the Election Commission has to go in and determine all the voting districts. So that is why I think when the mayor said we don't have time, that explains why we don't have time. That's not to say in the future, if this body determines they want to keep 7 and go to all districts, we can do that. Or if you want to add districts, you can do that. But I don't think that we have time to do that before this next election. So that's where that came from. And I was just going to add that what the U.S. Supreme Court has said that districts should be reasonably compact and contiguous. They shall not overlap. They shall respect political subdivision. They should have respect for communities of interest, and should look at protection of incumbents. And then I just wanted to give some numbers to you, just so you can have a little bit. I don't know if Ms. Smiley's going to show you kind of where our current districts are. I think you're going to do that. But just to, and I may be
Stealing my thunder.
stealing your thunder, but right now, if we look after 2020, we did have 44,431 that the census is allocating to Gallatin. District 1 has 6,919. District 2 has 7,408. District 3 has 8,749. District 4 has 14,779. And District 5 has 6,576. So as you can see, to get to that substantially equal population, which is what our charter provides, and then also state and law requires, it's gonna be a lot of work on this body to get to that. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back over to Ms. Smiley and let her get down to the real business everyone's interested in.
So, and if you need to jump in, Susan, just jump in. My eyes are a little tired. So this is the plan that came out of the 2010 census. This redistricting was done in 2011. And you can see that the population for each of the districts was kept around 6,000. I don't have the exact, the ideal population for that, but it was around 6,000. And what is important in this, must have that. What's important in this is looking at that total, the percent deviation, okay? That's at plus or minus 5%. So you can see that we were in very good shape. The highest deviation we had was 1.87. And also, we were in good shape as far as the majority-minority, with, at the time, District 5 having 41%. So that was where we started. This is really small, but I just wanted to show when we overlaid the current council or census box that we received with the current council districts, this was kind of the map. At the bottom in your packet, you have this map, but basically the important numbers to look at there was what Susan had said. Our deviation was as high as 66%, as low as 1%. So we were very much out of the bounds on that rule we had to follow. Additionally, the minority percent was fine. And let me just say, from 2010 to 2020, there was a significant change in the way they question or ask their questions about race. And so the Census Bureau cautions us to not try to compare apples to oranges from 2010 to 2020. They added, there's about there's more than 6 categories of questions about race. And the other thing I want to say is that when you look at the more detailed spreadsheet that you have, so if someone said they were, they were a mixed race, so they were two races, they were white and they were black. They could identify with both in the census. They could answer the question as white and black. What would happen is they would actually add, they have columns that's called white alone, or race alone, basically, race and something else, or there's a third column. So what happened was if somebody said, so they were 2 or 3 or 6 races for that matter, they identified with 6 different races, then what happened was the US Census, gets confusing, but the US Census actually counted them in the alone columns and they counted them in the several columns. So the point being, race numbers will never add up. So when you look at these numbers, you will not get, plus the fact that not everybody answered the question. So I suspect that might be a question as people look through these numbers. So at the guidance of the Comptroller's Office, the way that it will be done consistently across the state is that we will be looking at the things that are in the alone column, and that's what you have in your packet. Okay, so this is proposal number 1. As you can see, it does, it's pretty compact. It's not, it is different as far as I think District 4, but to the best of our ability, we have not split any neighborhoods. I think Mr. McCord had pointed out, we did run this by Mr. McCord, and he had pointed out, I think it was maybe up in, I don't know if you can see that. No. Up in the, what would be northwest corner, I think there's 2 neighborhoods there. Cambridge Farms, I'm probably gonna get this wrong because I don't know this stuff. But there were 2 neighborhoods there, and Mr. McCord assured us that they were had agreed they were 2 separate neighborhoods, and at this point, and I might be getting all of that wrong and probably shouldn't even talk about that. So basically the numbers on this one are, came out pretty darn good. We had the highest deviation was 2.2%, the lowest deviation was 0.7%. Everybody was in the range that we talked about. The highest district with the majority minority would be at 46.55%. If you recall the 2010 census, 2011 redistrict, the highest we had was 41%. So in that case, we are at 46%, and that counts all minorities, which would be anything not white. So in the next proposal, you'll see it is very, very similar to the first one. The major differences are at in District 5, for reference, I guess, where the Winchester Baptist Church is. That was previously in District 5. That is thought to be a higher minority area. However, when we moved that section over and gave it to, that one went to, I'm trying to find it. When we moved that one over to the next district, the other district, it actually increased our minority, the majority minority by 1.5%. So, again, I can go back, you can kind of, I wish this would work. You can kind of see, why does this not work up there? Okay. So that was different. Also, there's some changes around between District 2 and District 3, a little shift, District 5 coming into District 3. So, again, it's a little more compact maybe, but that's that one. So the numbers for that turned out to be, again, the deviation piece, the plus or minus 5%, the highest we had in this case was 1.75%, and the lowest was 0.54%. So it was a closer in population, and that the total minority percent for District 5 in this case went up to 47.91%. So the third option that we came up with, kind of a little weird, but, so this third option actually was, again, you know, within all the parameters, not quite as compact. It spreads District 2 out quite a bit across the city. But again, if we consider, you know, again, I'm just trying to give you all several proposals and several drafts. It worked, the population pieces worked out. The highest deviation in this case was 3.28%, and the lowest was 1.08%. So we were less than the plus or minus 5%, and in this case, the highest total minority percent was 57.63%. I guess I should have put that up there. Okay, so the next one, a little bit different in the center around District 2. Kind of made it a little wider and brought it down from the north, so it's a little more compact than the previous one. This one, we had the numbers. The highest was 2.28%, and the lowest was 0.85%. And we came up with the total minority percent of 52.16%. So, you know, the process of doing this was simply taking census blocks one by one and moving them around and calculating the total and figuring out what it was. Again, the constraints of the census block and their shapes. If we tried to take, in certain cases, we'd try to take a census block and it would cut a district in half. And we could not do that. They have to be contiguous. So, you know, if you have any questions at all, you want to sit down and see this or, you know, go through it, we can certainly, I'm happy to sit down with you and answer any questions you have about any of these. If you have a different idea and want to see what that might look like, we can try to run that and see what happens.
Are y'all wanting suggestions tonight? Or,
I don't,
I mean,
I'm going to leave that to Susan what the next steps are.
because,
I think you can give suggestions, but I don't think you're anywhere near deciding anything tonight.
No, I
I
mean,
think you're gonna have to bring
I'm
this
just-
back and talk about
just saying
this.
like, proposal number 2, they're all kind of similar, I mean, but proposal number 2 looks like it's the most even and most,
Ms. Smiley, will you be giving
Compact.
a recommendation?
Pardon?
Will you be giving a recommendation?
No, I will not.
No, this body has to determine that, and I will say, you know, Lori and her team they've worked really hard and diligently on this. It's really only IT. I do think they ran a few things by Mr. McCord because of some neighborhoods, but this is for this body because this body is the committee, so this body is the one that will make the decisions. These are proposals based on the guidelines.
I might not have been paying attention, but how much time do we have? Well, I'll try to. But how much time do we have that we've got to make this decision?
Well, the counties have until January 1st. We don't really have a set that deadline. The counties have to January 1st by statute, but the Election Commission has asked us to make this a priority and to try to get it done because they're going to be reworking the polling districts. But you do have time. I don't think you need to rush this. It's not something you have to decide tonight, certainly. I just think, by sometime before the end of the year, I think you need to have a decision made.
So we got a good jump on this already.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley.
And I will add, overall for minority population, it's going to be a little different than what we have done in the past, just because of the way the census did it. But our Our African-American population surprisingly stayed the same. It's still 14.7%. So we did grow, and that population grew. We are a little bit more dispersed across the city now with minorities, but I know that Lori and her team did try to work. We still have one district that could have a minority representation. I think that has been important to our city, and I think that should continue to be important going forward.
Thank you, Lord.
I'm supposing y'all want to put this back on a work session?
Yes.
Put it back on the next work session? Yes. Okay.
Okay, that's the end of the agenda. We'll move on to other business. Does anybody have any other business?
I do. Under the mayor's comment, I need to make an announcement. COVID is rearing its ugly head again, and the mayor did ask us to make it the public aware, do all we can do to try to curb this new outbreak. Certainly, it worries me, and I guess everybody else, and let's try to get back to a normal way of living. Another thing is, Mr. Fenton, I talked to you about the gun range. The council, we're getting close to letting Scotty's to go in there to start the excavation work. We're losing our window of opportunity for some of the field rock and stuff for our gun range. So I hope that we can move on this as quick as we can so that we can get some of the donations that Facebook is willing to give us. James, would you like to add anything else to this?
Yes, had some preliminary conversations, James Fenton, Economic Development, had some preliminary conversations today, and we'll also have another conversation tomorrow with them. As was mentioned, the window of opportunity for us to get some of these donations is closing. All the transfer documents have already been produced. At that point, it'll have to come to the city, get approved, and then work back through Public Works. But I think we've got maybe a week or two where if we need fill, I think there's a question with the contractor as to what kind of fill is needed out there. But I do know that they're all willing to participate. We just need to kind of move this forward as quickly as possible.
Mr. DePriest, I think, is wanting to add something to this too.
Sure.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Mr. Fenton.
Yeah, I spoke with Scotty's today. The site pretty much balanced out. If anything, we're gonna have excess. So actual fill material, we're not gonna need. But I made a call to the Facebook representative about trying to get some,
Gravel.
depending on what kind of rock they have. Now that, we could definitely use for pipe bedding, for the roads, for actually out there in the range once and we can stockpile it, hopefully there on site. So after conversations tomorrow, hopefully we can get that lined up.
The last hurdle that I heard mentioned by Chief Bandy was it Lance Wagner's office? Is he already on board, and have we already got it cleared
All
up?
the permitting's in place.
Everything's in place. So we're
We
ready
had
to
the
go.
pre-construction meeting 2 weeks ago. Permitting's in place. They've actually already got their construction entrance in. The loggers were supposed to be in town this week, starting on logging it, but they've had a COVID outbreak. Scotty's is down a bunch of people because of COVID. So they're still pushing to get here by September 1st.
Thank y'all for staying on top of it. It's been long enough.
Hi, Jeff Henschel, Communications Director. I have an application to close the streets. This is the rescheduling of Third Thursday on Main. They would like to reschedule for September 2nd, 5 to 10 p.m. The streets you're accustomed to with Third Thursday on Main.
Second.
First by Mr. Overton, a second by Mr. Fennell. All approve?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there any other business? Department head reports. Any department head like to speak?
Thank you, Councilman Fan. Just to follow up on the email that the mayor sent out earlier about one of our fire trucks, we had a great 3 days of live fire training last week. On Thursday during the final burn, Reserve Rescue 1 had catastrophic motor failure. We had a technician from G&W Diesel come out to assess it, and he recommended a total rebuild of the motor. He based the cost on a previous job ranging from $35,000 to $45,000. Unfortunately, this is a 1997 model with a commercial cab and chassis. Its value is only about $5,000 to $7,000. So this was one of our 2 reserve apparatus. We're down to 1 that's fully functional. So what that means is if we have a frontline piece of equipment go down for repairs or maintenance, then we'll have to use that in that place and leaves us no backup fire apparatus. We prefer to have 2 in the event that more than 1 fire truck does go out of service. And I just want to bring this to the council's attention tonight as we're still weighing our options as our best path and what we're going to do. But I just wanted to follow up and answer any questions from the council.
Jeff, is it the motor you're talking about?
Yes, sir, it's the motor.
Detroit?
I'll have to follow back up. This is in a commercial cab and chassis. Generally, you're going to find that being a Cummins motor.
Since it's such the age of the vehicle, have you guys tried LKQ to see if there's something that's wrecked or?
No, so Councilman Fennell, we're still looking at our options right now, trying to figure that out, working with G&W Diesel. Thank you very much.
Any other department head? Do I have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Overton made the motion to adjourn. Yeah.